In this video, I will show you how to replace the engine cooling fan assembly on a 4th generation Kia Sportage. The cooling fan is mounted behind the radiator and helps keep the engine from overheating by pulling air through the radiator, especially when driving at low speeds or when the AC is running. Some common signs of a bad cooling fan include engine overheating while idling, the AC not blowing cold air at low speeds, loud fan noises, or the fan not turning on at all. In some cases, the issue may also be caused by a blown fuse, faulty relay, or bad coolant temperature sensor, so it's a good idea to diagnose the problem before replacing the fan assembly. Before starting, make sure the engine is turned off and the parking brake is engaged. The first thing you will have to remove is the front bumper. Start by opening the hood. Along the upper edge of the bumper, you will see 4 plastic retaining clips and 2 boards holding the top section of the bumper in place. Carefully remove the clips using a clip removal tool or a flathead screwdriver. Then use a 10mm socket with a ratchet to remove the 2 bolts. Next, move over to one of the front wheel wells. Inside the fender liner, there are 4 plastic clips securing the liner to the bumper, along with 1 screw securing the bumper to the fender. Before removing them, start the vehicle and turn the steering wheel fully toward the opposite side. This creates extra room to work inside the wheel well. Now remove the 4 clips with a clip removal tool or a flathead screwdriver. Then remove the single screw using a Phillips head screwdriver. Repeat the same process on the opposite side wheel well. Turn the steering wheel the other way for better access, then remove the clips and the screw on that side as well. Next, look under the front of the vehicle. You will find multiple boards securing the bottom portion of the bumper to the splash shield. There are 4 boards near the outer edge that you will have to remove. Use a 10mm socket and a ratchet to remove these boards. Now all the screws, bolts and clips have been removed and we are ready to pull out the bumper. But before you do that, disconnect the negative battery terminal as a safety precaution. Now go to one side of the bumper where it meets the fender and gently pull outward. The workshop service manual mentions lifting the bumper slightly and pulling it away to release the retaining tabs. However, in practice, these tabs are very fragile and can break easily if too much force is applied. Use a small flathead screwdriver and insert it carefully into the gap between the bumper and the fender. Gently lift the retaining tab while applying light outward pressure to the bumper. Even with a screwdriver, releasing these tabs can still be tricky, so I'm switching to a pick tool for better control. Using a pick tool, carefully lift each retaining tab individually while slowly pulling the bumper outward. Take your time and work carefully along the edge to avoid breaking the tabs. There are 4 tabs on each side connecting the bumper to the fender. Here is a close-up view of how you do it. What I did was slide the pick tool underneath the edge of the tab and carefully lift it upward from its mounting point. Next, the clips underneath the headlight will have to be released. This part is much easier. Simply lift the bumper slightly and pull outward gently. The clips will disengage from the bracket underneath the headlight. Repeat the same process on the opposite side. Pull outward slightly on the edge of the bumper to create enough space to access the retaining tabs. Then use a pick tool to release the 4 tabs one at a time. The first tab is most difficult because there is very limited space, so work slowly and carefully guide the tool underneath. Once the first tab is free, the remaining tabs are easier to reach and release. Once all the side tabs are disconnected, pull the bumper forward slightly to release the clips underneath the headlight on that side as well. Now the bumper is ready to come off. Before removing it completely, place something soft underneath the front area to protect the bumper from scratches. With both sides released, carefully pull the bumper forward from the top. Do not remove it completely yet. If your vehicle is equipped with fog lights or parking sensors, you will have to unplug the electrical connectors. Reach behind the bumper and disconnect all the connectors. In my case, I only have to unplug the fog light connectors. Once everything is disconnected, carefully remove the bumper completely and place it on a soft surface to prevent any damage or scratches. Now that the front bumper has been removed, the next step is to remove the upper radiator support that sits on top of the cooling fan and the radiator. However, before the radiator support can come out, both the headlights must be removed since they are mounted on top of the support beam. Each headlight has a main electrical connector attached at the back of the assembly. To disconnect it, press the locking tab on the connector and carefully pull it straight out from the headlight. The headlight assembly is held in place by 3 mounting bolts. At the front of the headlight, there are 2 10mm bolts, and a single 12mm bolt is located toward the rear side of the headlight assembly. Use a 10mm socket and ratchet to remove the 2 front bolts. Then use a 12mm socket to remove the rear bolt. Once all 3 bolts are removed, the headlight assembly will be loose and ready to come out. Carefully lift up on the front side of the headlight while pulling it forward at the same time to release it from the mounting bracket. Repeat the same process for the other headlight by disconnecting the electrical connector, removing the mounting bolts, then lifting the front of the headlight slightly while pulling it forward to remove it. Next, we need to remove the air intake duct as it is sitting on top of the radiator support beam. The duct is secured by 2 plastic retaining clips. Use a clip remover tool or a fathead screwdriver to carefully remove both clips. Once the clips are out, carefully pull the air intake duct away from the air filter housing. With the air intake duct removed, you might think we are ready to remove the radiator support, but there are still a few things we need to remove at the back of the support beam. On the back side of the radiator support, you will find the hood latch assembly mounted in the middle. The hood latch has a release cable connected on one side and an electrical connector on the other side. Carefully disconnect the hood release cable from the latch. Then unplug the wiring harness connector. Press the release tab on the side and pull it straight out. The wiring harness for the latch is also clipped into the radiator support beam. Use a pair of needle nose pliers to carefully release the retaining clip, then pull the wiring harness free from the support beam. Next, locate the cooling fan resistor mounted on the fan shroud. You will see the main cooling fan electrical connectors plugged into the resistor. Press down on the locking tabs of the connectors and carefully pull them straight out from the resistor assembly. Make sure not to pull on the wires themselves. Instead, hold the connector body while disconnecting them. The cooling fan wiring harness is also clipped into the radiator support beam. Carefully unclip the wiring harness from the support beam and move it out of the way. There are also 2 front crash sensors mounted on the radiator support beam, one on each side of the vehicle, and both electrical connectors will have to be disconnected before removing the support beam. Each connector is equipped with a blue safety locking tab to prevent it from accidentally coming loose. Slide the blue tab inward until it is fully seated. Then press down on it and carefully pull the connector straight out from the crash sensor. Repeat the same steps for the crash sensor on the opposite side. Also, unclip the wiring harness for the crash sensor from the support beam. Now we are ready to remove the upper radiator support beam. At this point, double check that all wire harnesses, connectors and cables attached to the support beam have been fully disconnected and unclipped. The upper radiator support beam is secured by 4 mounting bolts. Use a 12mm socket and ratchet to remove all 4 bolts. Keep in mind that these bolts have threadlocker applied from the factory, so they may feel very tight when loosening them for the first time. Once all 4 bolts are removed, double check around the support beam to make sure nothing is still attached to it. Now carefully grab the support beam with both hands and slowly lift it upward and out of the engine bay. With the upper radiator support beam removed, you will now have clear access to the cooling fan assembly and the upper radiator area. The cooling fan assembly is mounted behind the radiator, and before it can be removed, a few mounting bolts will have to be removed. Let's start with the upper radiator hose. The upper hose is attached to the fan shroud with a small mounting bracket and a bolt. Use a 10mm socket and ratchet to remove the bolt. Once the bolt is removed, carefully lift the upper radiator hose upward to detach it from the shroud and move it out of the way. Next, move down toward the lower section of the fan shroud where the lower radiator hose is secured. The lower hose also has a mounting bracket attached to the fan shroud with a bolt. Use a 10mm socket and ratchet to remove this bolt as well. After removing the bolt, carefully pull the lower radiator hose away from the fan shroud to release it from its mounting point. Now locate the two mounting bolts near the upper corners of the cooling fan assembly. There is one bolt on each side near the top of the shroud. Use a 10mm socket and ratchet to remove both bolts. With all the mounting bolts and hose brackets removed, the cooling fan assembly is now ready to come out. Carefully grab the fan shroud from both sides and slowly slide the entire assembly upward to release it from the lower mounting tabs. As you lift it out, watch for any hoses or wiring that may still be close to the fan assembly to avoid snagging or damaging anything. Once it clears the radiator, carefully remove the cooling fan assembly from the engine bay. Here is a close-up of the front and the back side of the cooling fan assembly. If you are only replacing the fan blade due to damage, you do not have to replace the entire cooling fan assembly. The fan is secured directly to the motor with 3 small screws located on the front side of the fan. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove all 3 screws one by one. Once the screws are removed, carefully hold the fan and slide it forward. Here is a close-up of the front and the back side of the fan. Behind the fan, you can see the cooling fan motor mounted on the shroud. And it is held in place by 3 screws mounted at the back side of the motor. The wiring harness for the motor is clipped into the shroud to keep it secured and properly routed. Carefully unhook and release the cable from the shroud. Once the cable is free, use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove all 3 screws from the motor. Once all screws are removed, carefully separate the motor from the fan shroud. Here is a close-up of the cooling fan motor. This is the part number. To reinstall the motor, position it onto the fan shroud in the correct orientation. Align the mounting holes and reinstall the 3 screws evenly. Then route the cable back into the shroud. Flip over the shroud and make sure the motor is aligned properly and fully secured. Next, reinstall the fan onto the motor shaft. Start by aligning the fan with the motor hub. Once it is properly seated, install the 3 screws on the front side of the fan. Tighten each screw evenly, making sure the fan is held securely and there is no play or misalignment. After all 3 screws are tightened, spin the fan by hand to confirm it rotates smoothly without rubbing or obstruction. Next, reinstall the cooling fan assembly back into the vehicle. Carefully lift the fan assembly and position it at the back of the radiator. Slide the fan assembly downward into position so the mounting holes align with the radiator support area. Make sure the lower mounting tabs sit correctly in their slots behind the radiator. Hold the assembly steady and reinstall the 2 upper mounting bolts on the top corners of the fan shroud. Tighten them securely using a 10mm socket and ratchet, but avoid over-tightening. Next, reconnect the lower radiator hose bracket and secure it back to the fan shroud with its bolt. Then move to the upper radiator hose and reinstall its mounting bolt to secure it back in place on the shroud. Next, reinstall the upper radiator support beam. Carefully position the support beam back into its original position and align all the mounting holes. Before installing the bolts, apply a small amount of thread locker to the threads. If you do not have a thread locker, you can also use a small dab of nail polish to help prevent the bolts from loosening due to vibration. Once ready, install the 4 bolts by hand first to avoid cross-threading. Once all bolts are properly seated, tighten them evenly using our 12mm socket and ratchet. Then use a torque wrench to tighten them down to the factory specification of 16.7 to 24.5 Nm or 12.3 to 18.1 pound-feet. This ensures all 4 mounting points are tightened evenly and securely. Once tightened, double check that the support beam is properly seated and fully secure before moving on to reconnecting components. Next, reattach the hood latch wiring harness back onto the radiator support beam. Now, reconnect the cooling fan electrical connectors to the resistor. Align each connector with its corresponding port on the resistor and push it in firmly until it clicks into place. Also, reattach the fan wiring harness to the radiator support beam. Reconnect the electrical connector for the hood latch. Align the connector with the latch assembly and push it in firmly until the locking tab clicks into place. Reattach the hood release cable to the hood latch assembly. Hook the cable end back into its mounting point. Then secure the cable housing into its retaining bracket until it is fully seated. Before reinstalling the remaining components, test the hood release cable to make sure it is connected properly. Pull the hood release handle inside the vehicle and confirm that the hood latch moves normally. Next, reconnect the electrical connectors for both front crash sensors. Align each connector with the sensor and push it in firmly until it clicks into place. Once the connector is fully seated, the blue safety locking tab will slide back to its locked position. Next, reinstall both headlight assemblies. Carefully position the headlight into place and guide the mounting tabs underneath into the bracket openings. Once the headlight is fully seated, reinstall the front 10mm bolts along with the rear 12mm bolt by hand first to avoid cross-threading. Tighten all 3 bolts, making sure the headlight sits evenly and flush with the body panels. Now reconnect the main electrical connector at the back of the headlight. Push the connector in firmly until the locking tab clicks into place. Repeat the same steps for the other headlight. Next, reinstall the air intake duct. Align the duct with the air filter housing and carefully slide it back into position. Once the duct is fully seated, reinstall the 2 push clips to secure it in place. Make sure the duct is properly secured and aligned. Now we are ready to reinstall the front bumper. Carefully bring the bumper close to the front of the vehicle, but do not push it fully into place yet. If your vehicle is equipped with fog lights or parking sensors, reconnect all electrical connectors before reinstalling the bumper. In my case, I only have to reconnect the fog light wiring harnesses. After reconnecting the wiring, position the bumper onto the vehicle and begin by aligning the upper edge with the upper mounting support where the bumper hangs from the top. Make sure the top edge sits correctly and evenly in its original position. Once the top portion is aligned, line up the bumper with the retaining brackets located underneath the headlights. Gently push the bumper inward until the clips snap securely into place on both sides. Next, check underneath the bumper where you will see the large plastic mounting tabs. Make sure these tabs are properly aligned so they slide into their mounting points correctly. The boards for these tabs will be reinstalled later. After the lower tabs are aligned, press inward on the lower section of the bumper until it is fully seated. This will also help align the side tabs with the mounting points on the fenders. Now move to the sides of the bumper and align the retaining tabs with the fender brackets. Firmly press the bumper inward until all 4 tabs on each side lock back into position. Take a moment to inspect the bumper alignment and make sure it sits evenly and flush across all edges and body panels. Once you're satisfied, reinstall all the clips, screws and bolts removed earlier. Move to the wheel well area and turn the steering wheel to the opposite side to improve access. Reinstall the 4 plastic clips first, ensuring each one is fully seated. Then reinstall the screw and tighten it securely. Repeat the same steps on the opposite side. Next, move underneath the vehicle and reinstall all 4 bolts securing the lower section of the bumper to the splash shield. Then move to the upper section under the hood and reinstall the 4 plastic clips and 2 bolts along the top edge of the bumper. Once everything is secured, close the hood. And that's all. Consider subscribing to Join for more helpful automotive guides. Thanks for watching.